Oh, hey guys. Welcome back to this week's episode of how to become a better crappie tournament angler, or how to just become a crappie tournament angler. This video series has been a lot of fun, and it has brought me back to remembering the days when I first started. And I wish, and I'm going to date myself, I wish YouTube was a thing when I was a kid, because I would have maybe been able to advance my skill a lot faster. But my time on the water and my learning on the water is hopefully going to help you today. Today, we're going to dive into the tackle portion of how to become a better crappie tournament angler. And so we've talked about the rods, the reels, the line, and today we're going to talk about the tackle. Super excited to bring it to you today. Get your notes ready. Let's go. All right, guys, like I said, we're going to dive right into the nuts and bolts of the tackle portion. And just recapping a little bit where we're at here on the fourth video of this series, we talked about the rods, the reels, the line, and today we're going to talk about tackle. And so we're going to get into even, the size hooks, the weights of the jig hooks, the jigs, why we fished hand-tied jigs, why we fish plastics, when do we switch up, or what do we apply that to based on the weather. So today we're going to dive right into it. So we talked about in the previous video, boat positioning, getting the boat in position, having your nose of your boat into the wind. That way you're able to control your boat, and then also control where the prop wash is going from your trolling motor. So you don't want that prop wash going into that dock or that lift or that tree that you're fishing. So we got the boat in position, and now we're going to start making presentations of different jigs and such. So I'm going to a lake, and I always, I put it up to a lake that I've not been to or I haven't been to for a while. I've got to try to figure out what's going to make that fish bite, or to get some bites. You have to have some clues before you can really put a pattern together. So a lot of times I start with plastics, soft plastics, and so I'll have rods out that'll have like a shad-shaped body to it. I'll have a split tail, and these are going to be in various lengths, 1.5 to 2 inches. I really throw a 2-inch bait 95% of the time, and especially around the lakes here in Ohio that I fish at home. A 2-inch bait really matches the size of the shad that our crappies eat here. When we travel out of state, we have to look at what are those crappies feeding on. And we had a tournament at Old Hickory that my tournament partner got out a 3-inch bait, and he started catching fish right away. And we were fishing same dock, same color, same deal. He gets out a 3-inch bait, he starts getting more bites. So a lot of times you just have to be prepared. And I'm not necessarily going to fish a 3-inch bait back home, but I've got it just part of my tools. I compare tackle to golfers or mechanics. Golfers, you can't drive with your putter and you can't putt with your driver. and you have to have specific tools for specific situations. I had a tournament partner that used to be a mechanic, and he had this ginormous toolbox. And we'd be working on my boat, and he would say, hey, third drawer down right side, get that particular tool. And, you know, just all those years of him being a mechanic, he knew exactly where his tools were at, and he knew what tool to use when. So here we are making that comparison to getting out on the water. I'm gonna start with some sort of plastic tail, and you know, I like a 2-inch tail, and this particular one's a little split tail. And again, my previous videos I talked about black and chartreuse. Black and chartreuse catches them in clean water or dirty water, and everything in between. So a lot of times for me, just in my confidence, is I'll get a black and chartreuse and start fishing that way. And then back home here where we're from, we use a lot of cork and jigs. So I'll start with various depths. Remember what we talked about in the previous video, fishing from the outside in. I'll start with several different kinds of depths going into that. And then every bite starts to give me a clue, or every non-bite. If I'm fishing that and it's an hour and a half in, and I don't have any baits, or any bites, I'm sorry, there is no reason that I can't change, and I should change. As a tournament fisherman, the weather is changing all the time, and so you need to be clued in on, hey, man, I think the wind's switching directions. Now, I, as a tournament fisherman, will know that wind's changing directions because I've already watched the weather all the way, the whole week or 2 weeks leading up to the event. I know that right up to the last minute in the morning, checking the weather, hey, that wind's going to switch and come out of the southwest instead of the west. Or that wind's going to switch and come out of the north, and that's what's going to create and bring that cold front in. And that's going to be vital too, because a lot of times those fish bite real heavy right before the front. So being clued in on the weather and knowing that wind is going to be switching directions, the front's going to be coming in, is really going to determine a lot about what I'm going to be fishing. So like I said, going to have, the plastic tail. I'm going to switch it up between the split tail. I'm going to go to a shad-shaped tail, a beaver-style tail, different colors. And the bites as I get along in the day are going to tell me what I should be trying. And if I'm 2 or 3 hours into it, we're switching up plastics and I'm not getting bit, hey, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to grab a hand-tied jig. And when I grab that hand-tied jig, it's just a different type of style, shape, bait. Again, I'm going to try different styles, different colors, different sizes. And, here at home, I like to fish a cork and a jig, and I usually like a 1/32 ounce head or up to a 1/24 ounce head under a cork. So that's the size I'm going to use here at home a lot, and on a number 4 style hook. I like the gap, the extra bite that you get. As you can tell, I'm going to hold this up. You look how much gap is between that hook and that bait, and you can see there's a big bite to that. And I'm not, I need a hook that if it gets anywhere inside that fish's mouth, we got a higher hookup ratio. So that's going to help you be more successful. And because I have dropped a fish off the side of the boat before, or I lost a fish, I didn't have the right hook size or the right hook quality, and knowing it was a huge fish, and I get up to the scales and I got beat, and that one fish I lost was $1,000 fish. So when I'm looking at the components of my jig head, I want the sharpest and most wide gap hook I can get to have more of a bite. So that way there's just less chances of losing a fish. Now, I fish a lot. I shoot pontoons and shoot docks and such, and that bait's moving, that crappie's swiping at that bait. You want every possible chance of getting that hookup ratio with that fish. So we're going to move into another section of this, is when do I decide, hey, I'm going to need to start with a hand-tied jig, or I'm going to need to start with the plastic. How do I decide that? Well, I've already told you that I like to typically start with plastics. Right now, it's the early part of March, and we're going to be putting in our boats in our home waters here, and we're going to be fishing 35 to 39 degree water. And I'll catch them on plastics and such, but I really like a hand-tied jig when we're in this really cold water, and let me tell you why. less action, less movement, and a lot of times, you know, sometimes your plastic bodies have got a lot of bulk to them, and a hand-tied jig may not have as much bulk, or just like I said, a little lesser action. So a lot of times in this colder water, I'm going to start with a hand-tied jig, and again, no sacrifice on the hook size. As you can see, you know, there's a big gap between that hook point and that body. So and again, a number 4 size hook is vital. And you know, a lot of my 2 sponsors, Spillway Bait and Tackle and Reed's Crappie Jigs, both tie number 4 hooks for us. But they say a lot of the people that shop with them daily, they want number 6 hooks or a smaller hook. And that's absolutely fantastic. There's nothing wrong with a size 6 hook. And I have size 6 hooks in my boat because I don't always fish big 2-inch baits or 2.5, 3-inch baits. You know, I fish 1 1/4 inch. I have inch-long plastic baits even that I fish. So I want a smaller hook to better size up that the 2 combinations of the smaller bait and the smaller hook. But in tournament fishing, you have to think differently when you're going into tournament fishing. This is what this whole video series is about, making you and preparing you to become a crappie tournament angler. So you want every advantage to your favor of hook size, quality of hook, all of your equipment. You want the best that you can financially afford to have that on that day, in that tournament, in that 8-hour day. You want the absolute best opportunity that you can capitalize on. And I say this a lot, and my tournament partner gets tired of hearing it all the time, but I say control the variables that you can control. And so every variable that I can possibly control is controlled. And if stuff happens outside of that, well, then that's just what happens, and you have to deal with that as it comes. And years on the water and time on the water is what's going to help prepare you for that the most. And so again, in these video series, if you go back from and start in video number 1 all the way through 4, look at all the content is there, and then time on the water is the absolute most beneficial tip I can give you. You take everything out of these videos and you apply them to what you're doing, but then you got to go out on the water and do it. I've had some guys, you know, the different technology, different depth finder technology, or different, you know, well, geez, you have a 20-foot bass boat and I've only got a 14-foot aluminum boat. You maximize what you have. You maximize your equipment, and you go out and you put time on the water. Every opportunity that you can get on the water, get on the water. Practice, practice, practice. When you can't get on the water, I do a dock shooting or a pontoon shooting video where I talk about how to shoot pontoons and docks. Well, when you're at home, you don't have that luxury, and you can't always get on the water. So I take a 5-gallon bucket, lay it on its side at the right distance, and I practice shooting my jigs into that bucket. And when you get out on the water, you'll notice that bucket size is about the size or the same opening on each side of a pontoon or up underneath the dock. And if you get real critical and real fine-tuned into really shooting into that bucket, and out of 10 times you make it 6, 7 times, you're going to be much more successful out on the water when it becomes real. So again, time on the water. Time on the water. I started doing this when I was 12 years old. I'm 44, and every moment I can get out on the water to hone my skill, I'm still trying to get better and better every time I'm out on the water. And I even my shooting, my casting, I try to, you know, I feel real comfortable in what size rods and what kind of rod actions and such, but there's always something different, something new. And so I'm always adapting. And keep an open mind when you're tournament fishing. If you set out today and say, hey, the only thing I'm going to do is fish a black and chartreuse jig 2 feet deep, and that's all I'm going to do, well, fish move, and they move a lot. And you could be coming in at the weigh-in with nothing in your bag, and everybody's blowed them out, and you're like, well, I wonder what happened here. So you got to be open-minded. Time on the water is absolutely precious. And you know, I always like those commercials with the credit card commercials, and they would say hot dog at the ballpark $12 and soda pop $10. Time with your family is priceless. time on the water is priceless. So spend as much time as you can possibly do out on the water, and I promise you, your game is going to get a lot better, and you're going to get a lot more success in the tournament world. Guys, if you've liked this content, you like these video series, make sure you hit the subscribe button and the like button, and I'll have content coming out as much as possible this year. I'll have videos on the water. A lot of these techniques we talked about in these video series, I'll be doing and demonstrating out on the water. We'll also have tournament fishing coverage coming this year. So guys, stay tuned. You won't be disappointed. Thanks, guys.